Department indicted 5 gun dealers, charging them with supplying that city's notorious street gangs with handguns and semi-automatic weapons. The indictment's the result of an undercover investigation by Chicago's police department, which we reported on last February. In that story, we pointed out that Chicago has one of the toughest handgun laws in the country, making it illegal for just about any Chicagoan to own or even to carry a handgun. And yet, last year, more people were murdered with handguns in Chicago than in any other city in the country. So Chicago's Mayor Richard Daley decided to sue the powerful gun industry to stop the flood of handguns into his city. Last year in Chicago, there were 700 killings. 438 of these individuals were murdered by handguns, and another 3,100 seriously wounded. This, as we said, in a city where possession of a handgun has been illegal for 17 years. But it surely wouldn't occur to you that handguns were banned in Chicago if you'd been on the south side there just last New Year's Eve. Like all night scenes on videotape, you can't see a lot, but there is no mistaking the sounds you're hearing. It could be Beirut or Baghdad. Hundreds of guns being fired randomly on the streets and out of high-rise buildings to welcome 1999 in open defiance of the city's gun laws. Chicago Mayor Richard Daley says he's mad as hell at the gun manufacturers, and he isn't going to take it anymore.
You don't want these weapons in your backyard. We don't want these weapons in Chicago. If they want to sell them in their own backyard to create the havoc within their communities, then so be it.
So Daley has filed a $433 million lawsuit against the manufacturers, the distributors, and dealers of guns to recover some of the enormous medical, police, and court costs resulting from gun violence in Chicago. He says the gun makers, companies like Smith & Wesson and Sturm Ruger, are in fact arming criminals in Chicago because they ship huge quantities of their guns to dealers just outside the city limits, where, unlike in Chicago itself, the gun laws make it legal and easy for just about anyone from the city to buy all the guns they want. You believe the gun makers who are shipping guns to these dealers know what's happening to their guns?
Oh, I think they have to. They have to have understanding. They're not going to gun collectors. They're not going to rabbit hunters. They're going to the street gangs and the criminal element and the dope dealers to protect their interest.
And Daley accuses the gun manufacturers of designing many of their guns to appeal specifically to criminals. Guns that keep turning up on the streets of Chicago. To find out how these handguns were getting to criminals in his city, Mayor Daley sent undercover police officers into 12 gun shops just outside Chicago. And what they found was captured on police videotape. Even though these officers were dressed like gang members, motorcycle thugs, or militiamen, and even though they talked openly about using guns for killing, the dealers sold them weapons anyway. Officer George Klinger posed as a militia member looking for the most lethal weapon he could buy, and he found it.
It's a professional ordnance. This is a pistol. It shoots 30 rounds of .223 ammunition, which is the same round that the military uses in an M16.
And why would somebody want that for the streets of Chicago?
To either kill or injure people.
One dealer even recommended the best bullets for human targets.
I buy this special ammunition. Right. It's called pre-fragmented. The salesman told me that if I fired at somebody and hit them, that it wouldn't go through them and down the street and hit a little girl riding her bike.
This is what the salesman told you?
Yes.
You bought it?
Yes.
Officer Jeannie Brandmeier posed as a member of a motorcycle gang. She is there at the counter buying guns for her partner, who has already told the clerk he has a criminal record, and so he cannot get the state ID card he needs to purchase a gun legally. This is called a straw purchase. That is, when a person who cannot buy a gun legally gets someone else who can to buy it for him. The police say it's how most criminals in Chicago get their guns.
It was like I could bring anybody off the street into these stores, and just because I had the card, they would sell them a gun. It didn't matter what kind of criminal they were, or drug addict, or mental patient. It didn't matter as long as they had me with them, they could buy a gun.
Suddenly, somebody gives you the right to talk to the gun manufacturers. Ask them any question that you want. Officer Kelly?
Well, I'm beyond asking why. I pretty much think that the reason is just money. My question is, how much money do you want? When is it going to stop? There's no need for any of these guns, any of them, to be anywhere, not just in Chicago, anywhere.
Of course, we wanted to talk to the dealers who sell these weapons, so we went to Chuck's gun shop in Riverdale, Illinois. It's just 20 minutes from downtown Chicago. Chicago police report that more guns recovered at crime scenes come from Chuck's than from any other dealer in the Chicago area. The owner, John Riggio, one of the dealers being sued by the city, refused to answer our questions. The cops say that your clerks sold them guns even though the officers who were, they were dressed as thugs, thieves, gang members, whatever, they made it clear they were going to use the guns to kill people. How in the dickens can you do that?
I can't comment on the suit according to counsel.
Riggio also refused to talk to us about police records which show that in a 4-month period, he sold 7 guns to this man, Ezra Evans, a straw purchaser who bought the guns for Chicago's largest street gang called the Gangster Disciples. Last August, one of those guns was used to kill a 26-year-old police officer named Michael Sirianni. I spoke with his father, Tony. Tony, I was out at Chuck's gun store yesterday where the gun was bought that killed your boy, your police officer's son. And, I mean, it's just like walking in a convenience store, effectively,
That's right.
and picking out the weapon that you want.
Yeah. Yeah, and they usually tell you what kind of weapon to get and what kind of bullets to get and everything else. They know who they're selling to. They know exactly who they're selling to.
The gun dealers do.
Yeah, it's going to gang members. They know it. They know it.
And gun control advocates say the gun manufacturers also know the dealers are selling guns to criminals. Dennis Hennigan is legal director at the Center to Prevent Handgun Violence in Washington.
The straw buyer who comes into a gun shop and says, give me 10 Lorson 380 pistols. Now, what legitimate collector needs 10 of the same model of a pistol? That gun dealer knows that those guns are going to walk out of his store and end up on the streets in the illegal market in cities like Chicago.
Okay, the gun maker says, hey, go after the dealers, not us. It's the dealers who are the culprits.
Well, but ultimately, it's the dealers who are allowing the gun manufacturers to make these profits. I mean, the dealers are doing the gun manufacturers' business for them. Why don't the gun manufacturers say, look, we're not going to continue to supply you with our product unless you observe certain minimal standards of conduct to prevent criminals from getting guns.
But the gun industry claims the vast majority of gun dealers are honest and law-abiding, and that there's nothing the industry can do to prevent criminals from getting guns. Stephen Sinetti is vice president of Sturm Ruger, the largest gun manufacturer in the country.
I think there is an unfortunate misperception that somehow we don't care about the misuse of our products, that we wink at the fact that criminals get guns or that children shoot each other and that all we care about is the bottom line. And it's just not so.
Not according to one former gun industry executive, a man by the name of Robert Hass, who until he retired in 1989 was vice president of Smith & Wesson. Hass refused to speak to the press, but he did file a sworn affidavit in that New York lawsuit, an affidavit that sheds some light on how the gun industry operates. Here's what Robert Hass says. The gun industry as a whole, he says, is fully aware of the extent of the criminal misuse of firearms. In spite of their knowledge, the industry's position has consistently been to take no independent action to ensure responsible distribution practices. Now, that's one of your own guys.
I think what you have to realize is he's, again, talking about criminals. He's talking about people...
No, he's not talking about criminals. He is saying the industry has taken no independent action to ensure that dealers and distributors do business legally and responsibly.
we are, as an industry, more regulated than most when it comes to the ultimate sale of our product at the retail level. The dealers are federally licensed dealers. If the dealer breaks the law, the dealer should lose his license and go to jail.
Zanetti says that policing gun dealers is not the job of the manufacturers. It's the job of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, he says, the BATF, which licenses every gun maker, distributor, and dealer in the country. And what kind of policing is BATF doing? John Riggio out of Chuck's Gun Shop told us that before Chicago sued, he'd not been visited by BATF inspectors for 4 years. Since the lawsuit was filed, he says, ATF has been to his store twice.
If you are persuaded by what we're going to put on the air about these gun dealers in the outskirts of Chicago, are you going to stop selling to those gun dealers?
I think the question is, if BATF says these people have violated the law, we're not going to sell them anything.
Is it asking too much for Sturm Ruger to say, you know something, we could make a pretty good step if we told our distributors, hey, cut off those 12 dealers?
Is it asking too much for BATF to say, if this is proven to them, take their license away? That seems to me to be the appropriate way to go. You can't have manufacturers being a private police force every time some crime is committed with a product. Mike, it doesn't work that way in this country.
But if Mayor Daley has his way, that's exactly how it's going to work. He wants to force the gun companies not only to police their dealers, but to pay the billions of dollars in police and hospital and court costs that result from gun violence. At meetings like this one he hosted in Chicago, Daley has been lobbying his fellow mayors from around the country to file their own lawsuits against the gun industry.
We're breaking new legal ground with this lawsuit. We hope it becomes a national test case. We need to use every tool at our disposal to force the firearms industry to act responsibly.
The Castano Group was also invited to the meeting. That's an association of law firms that helped the states win a $246 billion legal settlement from the tobacco companies. They were there because they want to do to the gun industry just about what they did to the tobacco companies.
We are a bad dream. We are a bad dream to the gun industry. We're not going to stop till they change their methods of marketing, distribution, and manufacturing.
So now Mayor Daley's battle is turning into a coordinated nationwide legal assault, not unlike that which hit the tobacco industry.
Mayor Daley obviously hates handguns. I mean, you see that from his public statements. Right. He may well be saying, I don't care what the rationale, I don't care how I do it, I want to put them out of business.
Why are they manufacturing and marketing weapons in and around Chicago that has a total gun ban, handgun ban, and we as a society should know that?
You know why they're producing these weapons.
For money, strictly for money. And in making money, every industry has to be held accountable to the citizens as well as the customers. And that's what we're going to require from the gun industry.
More than 24 cities, including Los Angeles, Atlanta, Miami, and New Orleans, have now filed lawsuits against the gun industry. Meantime, the gun lobby continues to push legislation to prohibit cities from suing the gun makers. And so far, Texas, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Maine have passed such laws.